on today's episode, we are kicking off a new series called Next Gen. We are going to be interviewing a bunch of people from the next generation under us, and we're super excited about it because I don't know about you guys, but the world is going crazy, right? And so I love talking to the generation behind us and just getting their opinions and their perspective on what's happening in the world. Yeah. So we're going to start off with this episode with my son, my oldest son, Noah.
What's up, guys?
He's going to be our first guinea pig. So,
yeah, you've heard a lot about Noah.
Right? I know. Yeah, I feel like I use a lot of conversations with him. They reflect a lot in my own life. So
yeah,
we're gonna have it on here. Way to go!
Yeah. Okay, I want to start off with a question.
Go for it.
I just want to know, because I was telling your mom before you got here, you know, your faith, Noah, for how old you are, 17. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes.
Is really rare.
Thank you.
Right?
Yes, totally.
It's rare.
Especially in a boy.
Yeah, and a boy, being a boy. So I just want to hear, why does your faith matter to you? Like, if you're sitting in a room with a whole bunch of teenagers and you may be the only believer in the room, and somebody asks you, Noah, why are you the way you are? What does it mean to you?
Well, I know the last couple months, like, my love for the Lord has grown a lot. Yeah. Feeling kind of lonely and, like, trying to just grind out the season I'm in, playing baseball, and just kind of doing something different, having quit football is obviously something different, so now I have a whole fall to do, and just wanting to do something I can invest in people. Yeah. I've learned that relationships matter the most, so if I can be the best I can with the help of the Lord, then that's what matters most, because really, like, our purpose here on earth is to get people in the kingdom of heaven. So I think if you share your faith and you know, you walk with the Lord every day, you're kind of a light, you kind of have that favor. Like, you know how Moses talked about how his face would shine because he had so much faith? So that's kind of what it is. And, you know, I feel like I always remember I looked up to people like that. And so I kind of want to be that for others.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love that as you go into your senior year, you're probably going into it in a way that you haven't before because you will have spare time without football.
Yeah, a lot of spare time.
The whole entire family will have some spare time, right?
Yeah.
Which is exciting.
No, it is, yeah.
But it's also, like, it's new. And I feel like I love that you're, I don't know, as you're about to go into college, you're like, I'm going to do what I feel like is most important. I'm going to spend time with people and invest in people because I have the time to, right?
Yeah.
I love that.
Thanks.
I know.
I love it.
I can't wait to see what comes from it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be good.
Yeah.
Even if it's not like life changing.
Yeah.
It's like, it's your presence matters.
Thank you. Yeah.
You being available for people. You know?
Yes.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned the loneliness. So, right? Like, and we've talked about this some, especially when you're kind of set apart in that way. So, talk a little bit about just that loneliness and what is that like for you to live in that, and how do you kind of practically continue to be motivated despite the loneliness?
So, like, this morning, I don't know if it's because we're filming the podcast today or what, but I felt super attacked. Like, I was super upset this morning, but man, it sounds cliche, but I mean, if you just look after the Lord, I mean, He comes to you, and I remember sitting there, I was like, I just love you, God. Thank you for giving me strength all the time, and started tearing up and stuff. But, you know, it's just, I mean, that's a fact. It's simple as that. Like, if you just look towards the Lord, I mean, He'll empower you in the moments and give you strength in the moments when you need it the most. Yeah. So, I mean, it's definitely hard sometimes. Like, you know, you look at what other people are doing and look at what you're doing, and, you know, you kind of feel that a lot. But I don't know, whenever you experience the Spirit of the Lord, especially on your own time, just you and Him, you're like, I mean, it's just great.
Yeah, that's right.
Nothing better.
No.
So why don't you, if you're speaking to your friends, if they're listening and they're like maybe in a lonely place too, speak to that. Like, what does it feel like? Why are you okay with the loneliness or the sadness or?
Well, I just try to look long term. Yeah. And so if I always live in the moment, I can get caught up in my emotions, which I'm a very emotional person. So, and if I look at if I focus on how I'm feeling and make decisions off of that, I don't always make the right decisions, because sometimes I don't want to do something, or, you know, I don't feel motivated, or I feel like it's not always what I want to do. I just have to look at long term and be like, no, this might be hard, but this is what I want to do at the end of the day, and I'd rather just stick it out and And I guess if it works, it works. If it doesn't, doesn't. I hope that works for your question.
Yeah.
I hope that
I
answers
feel like
it.
that's a word for me. Like, don't always live in the moment and your feelings, because I feel like they feel valid in the moment, but then sometimes they lead you to making decisions that you wouldn't normally make.
Right.
Because you're so emotional. But if you think long term, okay, is this good for me in the future, or what I'm trying to build towards, then
Right.
then I don't know, if you live in that headspace, you make different decisions than in your emotional
Most
moment.
definitely.
They say emotions are valid because they're symptoms. So you don't want to ignore emotions because they're letting you know that something's not okay. It's like if you think about in your car when the check engine light comes on, it doesn't mean you just stop driving and get out and leave your car, right? But it does let you know, shoot, something's not okay. I need to go get this figured
Most
out.
definitely.
So I feel like emotions are that way, and learning. I mean, Noah does a really good job, I think, of learning to regulate his emotions, or at least learning.
I've definitely had to. With sports, you see it the most. I mean, I've always been kind of a hothead when it comes to sports, but I've tried to be a lot better about that and kind of see how that translates into life and stuff. So.
So you've read a lot of books on this. So what would you say, like, what is one lesson you've learned, or like one of the most good tips that you've found that's worked for yourself, or you would tell someone else?
Things aren't always as bad as they seem, and things aren't always as good as they seem. So you might be like, well, this bad thing happened to me, but in 3 days or, however long, you're like, oh, I'm actually glad that happened because that made this open up, or, this worked out. So if you just take everything at face value, then if it's really good, it might not be that good of an opportunity, or, whatever it is. So I think just kind of try to stay on the ebbs and flows thing, where it's don't get too high, don't get too low, but kind of stay on a good, even ground in the middle, and just see things out as they go over time. So I guess that's a tip I would have, and just I guess that's it. I don't know. Each book's different, so and then there's a lot of little things in there and stuff. So I don't know. I mean, that's the best I got right now at the moment.
That was good. That'll work.
Yeah.
That'll work.
Thanks.
Okay, well, so now I wanted you to talk a little bit about an experience you had a couple years ago when you crashed a car. So tell us a little bit about this moment, because I feel like it was a really pivotal moment in your walk with the Lord, and that's why I think it's important to talk about.
Okay, so I don't know if you guys know what Enneagrams are. Enneagram 3s they're called the achievers, and they're kind of people pleasers. They kind of go with the flow, kind of shape. They're like a chameleon in a way. They kind of shape to their environment. So obviously being like that, getting to high school, I wanted everyone to like me, I wanted to be friends with everyone. So, going to parties and hanging out with people, not always doing what I should be doing. I kind of, at first you're like, oh, this is fun, it's cool, you go down it. Or you kind of start doing things like that, and then you're just rolling. That's just who you are. So I kind of went down a path of that, and eventually it led to that moment. And so I got there. So this was like a year and a half. So this is my sophomore year. So say I started about a year after I started. So I guess it was like December or beginning of second semester freshman year, going to the beginning of the second semester sophomore year. Hanging out, and honestly, just being completely honest, I was drinking with my friends and stuff, and there was this girl who had this cool car, and I was like, it was
cool cars and girls.
Yeah, right.
Trouble,
I know. And so I just asked her if I could drive it, and she let me, but she was drinking too, so obviously it wasn't a smart decision on both of our parts. But I had drove, and I was just being dumb. I'd crashed the car, and so what I had done, and I was drifting around the parking lot. You're like, what in the world are you doing?
But so cool, right? It was so cool.
See, I had just watched 3 Fast and Furious movies a week or two before, so I was like, I got it down.
People, be careful what movies you're watching.
Yeah. And I don't know, I had done it, so I went around one side, came around the other, and if you're ever in a moment where you're like, one more time, do not do the one more time. No matter the situation.
Famous last word.
Yes, I was like, one more time. And so I go again, and I really don't know how fast I'm going. I slammed the brakes, and I'm still going just as fast as I was. I was hauling. Anyways, I go, I hit the curb, and I go up towards the stairs of the school, and that was just crazy. It was almost like a dream. I was like, this wouldn't happen to me, not me, right? You never think it's you, and then it happens. And so I guess I learned from that right there that, life's kind of, I wouldn't say unfair, because there's definitely like something that was deserving for me to happen to me, but like stuff like that can happen. You're not just like the main character or whatever. Nothing's gonna go great all the time. So that had happened, and everyone was there and saw me, and I feel like I had let down my parents, you know, I'm working at the church and stuff like that, and I just felt, I was like, this is unreal. And so aftermath, kind of going through the night, cops show up, you know, they try to situate everything. And the next day, you know, over time, learning that, you know, the price of what I was gonna have to pay off was $14,000 to $2,500. I mean, that's a thing that I definitely think was God. If I would have crashed 50 feet over, I would have gone to jail. So it was luckily on private property. No one got seriously hurt. The only thing that messed up on the car was like a curb and the fender and like something else. So I think I was looking at that and not getting a DUI and everything. I was like, man, this situation came out way better than it could have gone. And I was like, that's definitely the Lord right there. And I remember a couple months, you know, before that, a month or two, I guess, I really felt, I was like, man, I want to pursue the Lord. Like, I want to, right? But I didn't really like act on that. And so, I mean, the Lord knew what I was praying for. And since I didn't necessarily do it on my own, God's like, well, I guess I'm going to have to make you. Right?
Like a good parent.
Yeah, right? So that happened. And then from then on out, I was like, no, I got to get serious. Like, this is, you know, I had to, you know, learn the lesson the hard way, had to pay off money. I was kind of like a probation thing, kind of grounded for a while. And so that was definitely a big change for me. It definitely changed my life. You know, it sucks that it happened, but I do not think I would be who I am today or the rest of my life if that hadn't happened. So I'm actually extremely grateful that I had.
And that kind of ties into what you were saying about not everything is as bad as it seems and everything is good as it seems.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny.
Yeah, I think it's so crazy because I feel like the more you're in conversation with Christian people, you can look back as they're telling their story. They reflect on a time in their life when it like crap hit the fan.
Yeah.
And you're like, this is going to ruin my life. This
Right.
is a defining moment.
But
when they, like, years later or even months later, because it's not been that long, you can look back and say, no, wow, that actually was defining for a different reason I thought it was going to be.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think so much of the time, if we just commit this thing to the Lord, whether it was a good or a bad thing, Lord, like, use this for my good. And right? Because now you can look back and say, like, I had testimony of the Lord's favor over my life.
Yeah.
Of me choosing to say, you know what, this is not going to define me. I'm not a drunk. I'm not a party animal.
Yeah.
Like, I love the Lord. I made a bad decision. You know?
And that's so many people, right? You have these
All
bad
the
defining moments, but you know, really the definition I think comes like how we choose to move forward afterwards.
Yes.
It's not. It's the definition doesn't come before the event. It's how we handle it. And so, you know, I think we can decide like Noah did. How am I gonna recover from this?
Yeah.
You know, what is it gonna look like to move forward?
Exactly. Yeah.
What do you think it was that motivated you then? It just was maybe initially fear or.
I don't know. It just, I guess, I mean, it was all kind of a blur. I mean, I guess I tried to forget it kind of. So I don't remember a whole lot of like aftermath feeling that way. But I mean, growing up in church, I kind of knew what God was about, but I didn't know him. And so I was like, I mean, if God's who he says he is, like, I want to give it a try. I wanted to see if God really was all that, you know. I wanted to, I don't know. I wanted, like you know, I said I was looking up to those people that were like faith warriors, I guess, and I was like, I kind of want to be like that. And so I did want to be like that. So I just kind of made the decision, and I wasn't great off the back. It wasn't like I was just right there. I mean, it took some time. I was still kind of in what I was doing, you know, like kind of here and there, kind of stepping away from that, but still a part of it. So it wasn't like an instant change. It was a gradual change. I still kind of had to, because you're taking that step of faith, like you're like leveling up. And so Satan sees that. And I think he was trying to like, no, come back to what you were. Like, that was one mistake. Keep doing it. You're fine. Think about the times you got away with stuff. And so I had to just keep deciding like, no, this is what I want to do. Yeah. And I'm going to do it. And then once you get there, then you're like, I'm on full force now.
I think on the flip side, as his mom, when that moment came, like I kind of knew the Lord had kind of prepared my heart that Noah would have a moment like that. And so he had kind of helped me resolve to just respond with, Noah, I've never loved you more than I do at this moment. And I remember so just like it was yesterday, that moment when he came to us and told us. And Mike and I really think my perspective is that we did respond like, no, we love you, we got it. Like we really didn't ever yell at you. And so we went with him and just helped him walk through that. And it was really cool to get to have conversations with that other family involved and just to see God's the work in Noah and just within that situation so immediately. And so I think it's important as a parent to be proactive in praying for your kids, because I knew Noah more than my other kids so far was going to need that kind of a moment to really get his attention, to see where Noah was going to stand. So then it was good to help you.
One more thing, you were talking about what kind of made me want to do it, and I remember even that night being kind of out of it as I was, when my mom and my dad were, like she said, just like loving me and stuff. I remember thinking the next day, like, man, if my parents can love me like that, God definitely can love me like that and more. So that kind of was something that really made me feel better about the whole situation.
So I think that's such a cool, I've just always loved this testimony of Noah's, because it's so cool to see how God can work in the hardest moments of our life to bring us around to him. So I'm thankful. I look back and I'm really thankful that he got to go through a moment like that. If you can say that as a parent, but like if that's what it took and he could do it, while he's young enough that I can still help him. Gosh, I'd rather that than when he's 21 or 25 and the consequences are so much more severe. So I love it, and I appreciate you sharing it.
Noah, when your mom and I talk about you, sometimes we talk about how my dad has said this to me before, that if you're a leader, you're obviously a natural leader, just as a person, and you didn't ask for that, but it's who you are. It's who the Lord has made you to be, And I think with leadership, there just comes such responsibility. It's like a responsibility and a privilege at the same time. It's one to steward well. And, I'm like, gosh, you're 17, and I feel like your faith is so real for you. It's so personal, And when I was 17, I was a good person, but my faith was probably still my parents' faith. I really hadn't made it personal for me, I don't think. And I hadn't decided this is who I'm going to be. I was 21 when that decision came. I'm like, okay, Lord, you can lord over my life now, But so I'd love for you to just share, because I know this has been a process for you. I mean, you're a family of 6, right? And I know that y'all are very, that's crazy. Just like a closing thought, I'd love for you to share, Noah, like, I know that this is like, y'all are so tight-knit, you do a lot of things together, you go through a lot of things together, you go to sports events together, and y'all are out here in a place that you didn't grow up, but you're doing it together, right? And I know that your mom and your dad have been so influential in you. I'd love for you just to speak to, your mom's sitting here, what has her faith meant to you? What has she taught you for your faith to become personal to you?
That following the Lord is not something like, it is, his experience, his spirit, Holy Spirit is unreal, but it's not all gold, glitter and gold, right? So I feel like majority of the times it is pretty hard. You look at Solomon, who wrote Ecclesiastes, he was a pretty sad guy. Most of the stuff he writes about, someone who had all the wisdom in the world, knew so much about God and Jesus, and I think it was beforehand, but I don't want to mess anybody up on their Bible timeline or whatever, but you're like, man, this is pretty sad. Ecclesiastes is definitely something that's changed my whole perspective. Following Christ is hard. It's not easy at all, and it's definitely sad a lot of the times, and you're stuck questioning God, like, why you put me in this situation? Why is everything the way it is? So that's something I learned, and that the Lord fights for you. Whenever you're battling spiritual warfare, within the home, out of the home, wherever it is, when you're walking with the Lord, he fights for you. So as long as you keep him right in front of you, you keep his cross where you walk, nothing can defeat you. And, it's kind of another, cliche term that everyone hears, but once you see that happen, your faith like skyrockets, because then you're like, oh, this, everything in the Bible is real. Like it's a book that's alive, right? So it's cool to see what you see in the Bible and hear people's testimonies and their stories, and just see them walk it out. So that's something that helped me a lot. And just being a strong person, I guess, because obviously everyone can do part of it on their own, but without the Lord, you can't be, he changes you, right? Yeah. So it's like, if that's your identity, then do you kind of get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like your potential, you kind of tap into your potential of who you can be and the influence you have and how you can help others. So, that's just a few things really. But yeah, I guess that's what it was for me. And just having the right words at the right time for people. When someone needs help, you share what you think you need to share. I think the Lord gives you the right words at the right time.
Yeah.
So
what do you think is that your hope then for your generation? You're talking about loneliness and these defining moments, but I know like you have all these friends that you wish would know the Lord like you know them. So what do you think your hope is just for your generation?
Just in general?
Yeah.
I kind of thought about this, like, you go on social media and you see everything's going great, and I feel like no one really talks about the hard things. Like, no one wants to open up and share, which I never did for the longest time. So I get that. It's definitely hard. You can't just do it. You kind of have to practice it, but I wish everyone would know that we're all kind of going through the same thing. Like, everyone's like, oh, which some situations are harder than others, so that's definitely true, but it's like, it's not like we're against each other. I think humanity's all on the same team here, right? Like we're all one, and especially people who, are Christ followers. I think, talk with each other. Like when you're in small groups, share the hard things, practice it, and if you're not comfortable, then okay, but do what you can or what you do feel comfortable with. I just want people to understand that life's hard for everyone, and if we all knew that, we'd all try to help each other. Mm-hmm. Wasn't there like a place in the Bible where it said no one lived with lack because everyone like gave to each other? I don't know if I heard that. I think I heard that somewhere. I'm not sure.
Sense.
It does.
But anyways, I guess that's what it is, that we can all just be there for each other and all love the Lord first, because I feel like when you do that, it make everything else kind of like a chain reaction. So I guess that's kind of what I want.
Yeah, and despite the hardness, you still choose to follow him, still choose to love him, still choose to represent him, because he's that option is way better than anything else, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Noah, thank you so much for
Thank y'all
sharing.
for having me.
You are so inspirational, and I feel like I love when you can sit with somebody and you're like, man, you really are who you are. Like you're
Thanks.
not just some smoke and mirrors.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
I love that.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I know you're proud.
I am so proud of you, bud.
Thanks.
All right, guys. Noah Jilek. Be Noah Jilek.
Be Noah.
Hey, y'all. We'll see you
Legend.
next week.